What Whatify is about is figuring out what you should do, is organizing the data to make recommendations that will tell you how to increase your views and sales.
You are listening to Thrive by Design, business, marketing, and lifestyle strategies for your jewelry brand to flourish and thrive. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Thrive by Design podcast, episode 107. Hey there, it's Tracy Matthews. I'm your host today of the Thrive by Design podcast, also the Chief Visionary Officer over at Flourish and Thrive Academy. And you know what? I'm a totally creative person, but I totally geek out on left-brained business stuff and analytics and metrics. And today, you guys are in for a really special treat because I have a Yale professor on the show today. Get ready, get excited, because we are going to talk about clever ways to split test images to grow your Etsy sales. So for all you out there who are trying to get more impact and exposure with Etsy, today's episode is for you. And I'm really excited to share what my guest today, Jason Abaluck, has to say about how just tweaking your images a little bit and testing images against each other can increase your traffic and ultimately increase your sales in your Etsy shop. I know a lot of you are concerned about this because Etsy is changing algorithms. A lot of the way that Etsy's, the old ways of getting exposure on Etsy have kind of started to tank as this new algorithms kind of come into place. So I'm really excited about this, especially because, as you know, at Flourish and Thrive, we support all sorts of jewelry designers and we always help you with your business growth. But I'm always on a mission to bring Etsy experts on here for those of you who are still selling on Etsy, in addition to or in lieu of your main branded domain website. So this is going to be an awesome show. We're going to talk all about clever ways to split test images to grow your Etsy sales. So let me tell you a little bit about Jason Abaluck. Jason is a Yale professor, as I mentioned, and he's an economist by trade who wants to help everyone from doctors to Etsy sellers. And he's helping them make better decisions using science instead of guesswork, which is super exciting. Jason is an associate professor of economics at the Yale School of Management. He holds a PhD in economics from MIT and an AB from Harvard University. The dude's a smart guy. Let's just put it that way. All right, you guys, are you excited to dive in? Let's jump right into the episode. Well, I have a special guest today on Thrive by Design, and I'm really excited for this conversation because this is something that we've been doing in marketing for a while. And we're going to talk all about split testing with Jason Abaluck of Whatify. Jason, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to talk about this topic because in our pre-conversations, we were talking about split testing images for Etsy and how that can really help you sort of like improve your conversions and increase your sales and capture, really understand what's working because you have data behind it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think when I think about split testing, I think of it as really doing two things. So first, there's the thing that you said, the idea of having data, just getting some kind of feedback so that you could see what's better. And the second piece of it is not just having that data, but having a way of organizing the data. So not just having a bunch of numbers, but actually being able to extract answers from those numbers.
I am so excited because we're going to dive deep in this today. So let's start this. But before we do, I don't want to go straight into split testing. I want to hear a little bit more about you so that our listeners can get a little bit of an idea about your background and how you kind of came to, being so fascinated with split testing and launching Whatify.
Yeah, sure. So cool. I guess my background is I'm a professor of economics, and I guess my intellectual journey has been that I've always been interested in how people make decisions, and specifically in the idea that when people make decisions, we're really only using a tiny fraction of the information that exists in the world. And also that it's hard for us to know, even when we have all the information, how to appropriately process that information. So one example of that might be when you try to decide what foods to eat. So first, different people put in different amounts of efforts to try to figure out what research is out there about what's healthy and what's not healthy. But even if you know that, actually operationalizing that information can be difficult because you might say, suppose you're trying to decide what to get for lunch. You can either buy a cheeseburger, which is unhealthy but cheap, or you can buy sushi, which is more expensive. Maybe it tastes equally good, but it's healthier and more expensive. And then the question is, probably a cheeseburger is unhealthy, but how unhealthy is it? Is it $10 unhealthy? Is it $100 unhealthy? Is it $1,000 unhealthy? And that's the kind of thing that I've been interested in, trying to think about quantitatively whether people are making decisions that integrates all the available information in an optimal way. And first, how you can tell if they're doing that. And second, how you can change things so that they can do a better job of doing that.
So cool. My mind does not work this way at all. So I love talking about this stuff because I always learn something new, even though I talk about, marketing and split testing and how to get people to buy all day long. Like, it's so interesting to hear, different perspectives of how we can really grow our product-based businesses and our jewelry businesses in particular with just something so simple as like testing an image and analyzing data like that, like the cheeseburger sushi scenario.
Yeah.
Super cool. Awesome. So you're a professor of economics. Are you still a professor of economics or have you moved on from that?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. So my full-time job is still being a professor.
That's so cool. So tell us sort of like why you wanted to kind of move into doing more with split testing and why you're passionate about it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see this as, in some ways, just an outgrowth of the other research I've been doing about how to help people make better decisions. And I think one of the huge things that split testing helps with is the sort of non-obvious point that just trying different things is not enough. So you might think that if you want to choose what image is best for your Etsy shop or sort of any other decision, that what you need to do is just, you have image A, you have image B, and you're just going to try one and try the other and see what works. And first of all, doing that is probably a lot better than just guessing, right? If you actually tried them and see what works, that's a huge step forward. But the problem is that it can very easily go wrong. And the way in which it can go wrong is to say, suppose that I took the first image. I have an image of a necklace, and I have one image which is just the necklace, and another is the necklace on a person's neck. And I want to see which is better, which will sell more. Mm-hmm. So suppose I try the necklace on a person's neck on Saturday, and I try the one that's just the necklace on Tuesday. I might see that the one with just the necklace sells a lot more. It sells 15% more. But it might have nothing to do with the image. It might just be, I always have more sales on Tuesday than I do on Saturday.
Exactly.
And that's the problem that split testing solves. And just for your listeners, split testing, that's the same thing as A/B testing. It's the same thing as a randomized experiment. These terms are used sort of interchangeably to describe these things.
A randomized experiment. Okay. Yeah. I love that. It's like so scientific, which is so cool.
Yeah, and so it's exactly what you're saying, though. This is the same exact technique that is used by scientists, by academics, by everyone when they actually want to figure out the truth.
So would this be like the same as doing like a medical case study where you're giving someone like a placebo drug as opposed to like a real drug to see results, or is that a little bit different?
So a placebo introduces slightly different issues that are they're interrelated with this set of issues. So they're very closely related, but it's certainly what is done in medical trials. You have the same problem in medical trials as the Tuesday-Saturday example I just described. So formally, it's called the problem of selection bias, which is the problem that, like, suppose I just try different things. I don't do any kind of formal experiment. Then what will happen is I want to see, in which patients will warfarin lower their risk of having a stroke? Mm-hmm. I could look at the patients who got warfarin and compare them to the patients who didn't get warfarin. But the problem is, if you do that, you might say, oh my goodness, the patients who got warfarin are even more likely to have a stroke than the ones who didn't. But it's not because warfarin is causing them to have a stroke. It's because the whole reason they got warfarin in the first place is because you suspected that they might have a stroke. So
exactly.
If you want to estimate the effect of warfarin, then right. So it's like you can't just say, let's compare the people let's look in the past and see who got it and who didn't get it. Let's try both and see. You have to try both in a very systematic way. And what split testing does, what a randomized experiment does, is to say the way that we're going to decide who gets A and who gets B is we're going to flip a coin. And what that does is to guarantee that everything else is held equal. It guarantees that you don't have the problem that, I tried one image on Saturday and one on Tuesday. Because over time, all that stuff is going to cancel out. Over time, you're going to try the image an equal number of times on Saturday and Tuesday. And over time, you're going to give warfarin to patients who are equally predisposed to a stroke if they didn't have warfarin.
Okay, got it. Okay, so if we're bringing this back sort of like to marketing, you know, when I think of analytics and metrics and testing and all this stuff, like we're often testing, you know, you test images, but you also test headlines, but there's not a lot of things out there that like really easy to do. So how does this, or not easy to do, but it's like, you know, you need something out there to sort of like help you. And, you know, tracking these things, it runs a lot deeper than, like you said, just guessing. So how does this affect the images you use, and how important is it to split test images so designers can get an idea of like some of the missed opportunities they might be having if they're doing this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you're deciding whether there's a lot of value in any kind of experimentation like this, the key question is, how much uncertainty is there? If you already know the answer, then okay, you don't need to do any experiment, because you know, look, it's better for me to have a picture of my product than to have a white screen. Normally, what we found in Etsy, though, is it's not like that. It's not like, oh, picture 1 is a picture of your product and picture 2 is blank or something like that. It's like you've uploaded multiple pictures that are all a reasonable representation of your product.
Okay, cool.
And you might say, oh, look, but it's pretty clear that this one is the most, it's like in the situation I described earlier, where it's like you have a necklace and then you have a necklace on a person's neck. It might seem obvious. You might think, oh yeah, definitely the primary image should be the picture of just the necklace, because that's what really shows the product most directly. Okay? Or it might seem obvious to someone else. They might say, oh, no, the primary image should be the one on the person's neck, because that'll get people to think about how good this will look once you're wearing that neck. And it turns out that, and I've now looked at thousands and thousands of these images and compared our results to sort of what one might intuitively assess. It is really, really, really hard to just know, based on sort of prior principles, what kind of image is better. And it's not just me. I don't have a lot of artistic talent, but other people on the Whatify team do. And it's the same for them. They pick out the image they think is nicer. They pick out the image they think is better. But that's not necessarily the one that actually generates more views and sales. Because
this is so interesting. I'm going to tell you why in a second.
We just don't know a lot about the answer to that problem. So go ahead. Yeah.
You know, I think it's like so interesting is that, you know, for Etsy is such a different like beast compared to a website, or other types of marketing. Like we know for PR that you want everything on a white background. We know for websites, typically white background images create a more cohesive look on a website and improve the user experience of a website. But Etsy, I found to be so different, because we've had designers in the past say, oh, my products sell better with the white background images. But then also people said my sales started tanking when I started doing things that were just on a white background. Yeah. And the ones that were all stylized and you could hardly see the product sold better. So it's like so fascinating.
Yeah, let me be clear. I'm not specifically saying that when I said a white background, I was trying to use sort of like the example,
Oh, no, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it might be sometimes a white background is better and sometimes it's not. And that's why it's so important to test each listing individually. If you just go on these sort of like general principles, they can help a little bit. It's like, an image with a white background might on average be 0.001% better than one without a white background. And in fact, one thing we're planning to do at Whatify over the next couple of months, we're going to have a series of blog posts. We haven't launched this yet, but we're planning to soon, that sort of talk about, or sort of test some of the wisdom that's out there about what kind of images are better and sort of see what on average is better. But what I was just saying is it's important to go beyond just that average as well, because, you know, a white background might be better on average, but it might be that for many kinds of images, a white background is not better. And that's what Whatify figures out. For every single listing you have, it figures out what image is best and how much it will increase your sales.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So you kind of covered it a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit more about how, like, some of the results that you've seen of split testing images, in particular on Etsy, how it's increasing sales and conversions for the people that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. So our headline number is that we have about a 10% increase in traffic if you we recommend rather than the alternative image. Okay. And the key point I want to make about that is that 10% number, it's not BS. That is a real number compared to virtually any other number you see of that sort from anyone else where they're kind of making it up. They don't really know for sure. We have run tens of thousands of scientific experiments that cause us to get that number. So it's like I would bet my life that if you use the images that Whatify recommends rather than the alternatives, that on average, they will increase your sales. Okay? It's not debatable. It's completely proven as much as any empirical scientific claim can be proven.
Cool.
And when I say an average of 10%, so let me clarify that a little bit more, which is that some shops might get more than a 10% increase. Some shops might get less than a 10% increase. What we are now offering is, so the way that our service currently works is you try Whatify for a month. And then, so it's completely free. You don't have to enter your credit card or anything like that. We show you our recommendations for some images. And then if you like, you can subscribe. And we'll give you the rest of the recommendations and we'll do ongoing testing. You can test additional listings and everything else. And what will happen is every month that you are subscribed, we will send you an update that says, hey, this month we have increased traffic to your shop by 2.1%. Now, 2.1% might not sound like a big deal. It's like, okay, it's only 2%, whatever. But if you're subscribed to Whatify for 2 years, and every month for those 2 years, we're increasing your traffic by 2%, at the end of those 2 years, you've made thousands of dollars potentially that would have been foregone had you not subscribed to Whatify. So it's sort of like, you can kind of think of it as like exercising or like eating healthy or something like that, where even a small benefit after a month, those add up to an enormous difference over time. And of course, for some shops, we see an enormous benefit even after just 1 month.
So I want to ask you a question. Does this help? So it's helping search. Like, how exactly does it help the search piece so people can find designers? Does it get them listed on the front page? Does it pick up in a different way? Do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So my first answer is we don't know for sure. What we know for sure from these experiments is just that for one of 1,000 possible reasons, if you use this image B rather than image A, your traffic will be 10% larger, right? Now, we are very interested in the question that you posed in exactly why it is that some images work better and what difference they make. So we're trying to figure out more about that. We think it must partly be sort of whether people conditional on you showing up in the search results. Do people click on that image? It might partly be that, for whatever reason, using some images, if more people click on it, then it leads you to end up showing higher in the search results. But there's a variety of different factors. And all we know for sure is that we can increase your traffic. And we're trying to find out more about what those mechanisms might be.
Okay, cool. I hope the next step for this is to increase the conversions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be amazing.
So you mean sales, essentially?
Yeah.
So in fact, we are just in the process of analyzing that now, which is, so we think that if we increase traffic by 10%, we must be increasing sales by some similar amount. It's hard to imagine that, you have this 10% increase in traffic and you're not getting any increase in sales. So probably by the time this podcast airs, we will in fact have completely solid evidence where it's just a matter of us collecting more data in total. Because sales, it turns out on Etsy, you get about 100 views for every sale. Okay. But what that means is if you thought that proportion was always the same, which is a big assumption that I'll talk about in a moment. If you thought it was always 100 views per one sale, then you would say look, well, if you currently get 1,000 views in a month for your shop and we increase that by 10%, so 1,000 views would mean 10 sales. If we increase that by a 10% increase in views, would be 1,100 views, which would translate into 11 sales. So it would also be a 10% increase in sales. Okay. Now, we don't know for sure if it works one for one like that. And so that's something that we are actually in the process of testing as we sort of collect more data. We have enough data that instead of just asking, are we increasing the traffic that your images get, we can ask, are we increasing the sales that your images get? So most likely by the time the podcast airs, we'll have validated that and probably we'll have language on our website that says we're increasing traffic and sales by 10%.
Ooh, I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait to hear about it, how it goes.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to hear a little bit more about why you just, this is a little bit backwards. We're kind of like approaching it through the back door, but why do you kind of journey, like you're an economics professor, you clearly have like a really like amazing position.
Yeah.
Like, how did you, what got you inspired to like jump into like helping Etsy sellers?
Yeah. Well, so I'll start a long way back, which is how I sort of thought about the idea of Whatify. So when I was in graduate school, which is now some number of years ago,
Yeah.
I saw a seminar, which was actually by a physician at Mass General Hospital.
Okay.
And what he did in that seminar was say, look, we were trying to figure out how at Mass General Hospital we could improve quality of care and simultaneously lower costs. And we looked at the research literature and we saw 100 different things we could do. So what we decided to do was to run 100 different experiments. We made a list of all the things we could do. And then for every single one, we did an experiment where we said, on some days, we're going to do things X way. On other days, we're going to do things Y way. Or for some doctors, we're going to say, hey, we'll send you a reminder every day that we're targeting this goal in terms of the readmission rate or something like that. And for other doctors, we'll have a small incentive where we say, oh, by the way, if you remember to send your report on time, we'll give you $50. And based on those 100 experiments, they figured out what worked. They said, 37 of these, we found that one option was much better than the other one. And now we've implemented those 37 things. And collectively, that has led to an enormous change. So I sort of saw this presentation and was like, man, everyone in the world should be doing this all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of ridiculous that, it's considered the exception that, there was this one really innovative manager who decided to do 100 experiments to actually figure out what worked, when in fact, everyone should be doing this. And so basically that's what Whatify is about. And we're started with Etsy. Right now we're exclusively dedicated to Etsy for a couple of reasons. First of all, we just like Etsy. Everyone involved with it has bought stuff on Etsy. Some of us have, not me personally, but others have sold stuff on Etsy, or designers themselves who have created things and sold them on Etsy. And so
we'll keep you to the analytics.
Exactly. So I can't design anything. But so first, we like Etsy. Second, we felt that this, for a variety of reasons, was a setting where we thought that A/B testing had a lot of value to add, where we just, as I said, there's a lot of uncertainty in what image is best, or what photo is best. And so we thought we could really help people a lot by doing that. And then there were a number of technical reasons having to do with automating the process of doing these experiments on Etsy that it turned out it was a very natural setting for that.
And with all the analytics changes, this is like an amazing way to get your images in front of more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the way that we contrast this with other analytic services is, so I sort of mentioned the idea earlier, the idea that, you could have a bunch of numbers. There could be an analytic service that tells you every number about your shop, every number about, for every listing, how many views and sales you currently have and what that's been historically and anything you could possibly want to know. But just having those numbers doesn't tell you what you should do. It doesn't tell you, if I do X rather than Y, will that give my shop more sales? And what Whatify is about is figuring out what you should do, is organizing the data to make recommendations that will tell you how to increase your views and sales.
Okay, amazing. I love that. Okay, so I'm just taking note. Like, I love this kind of stuff. So I love taking notes. I can never, my mind will never be the kind of mind that's going to figure out how to do it. But I love learning about it. So I'm so passionate about it.
I was just going to say, it's very good that there are different people with different minds that are good at different things, because that's what makes the world go round.
Exactly. We need we need the A and the B, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To balance things out.
Yeah.
So Whatify sounds awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works, like when someone signs up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the basic idea is to try to make everything as automatic as possible, so that the whole process of signing up, of using Whatify, of getting results, and of implementing those results takes just a couple of minutes total of the user's time. So what happens is you sign up, and first you select which of your products you want to test. We encourage you to test all of them, because typically it's the case that for every product, by running an experiment, we can figure out which image is better. Then what happens is, once you select the products you want to test, you start the experiment, and the experiment will run automatically. So we'll send you an email update after 2 weeks, but every 4 hours for the next 4 weeks, we will randomly switch which of your first 2 images for each listing is the one that appears as the primary product photo. And then we'll automatically collect how many views, how many sales you get during that period, so that we'll be able to analyze the results. then after a month, or if you're a subscriber every month, we'll then get together, we'll analyze the results, and we'll say, okay, we'll figure out which image is best for that listing, how many views, and ultimately how many sales it'll generate. And then we send you an email where you can click and you can see all those results. You can see for every listing which image is best and how many views and sales that generates. And then it's up to you how to proceed. So we provide some functionality where if you want, you can automatically implement all of our recommendations.
Can you just click a button or something and it just will change? Oh, that's so cool.
Exactly. So you don't have to go in and say, okay, I'm going to manually go to everyone and figure out which one, what if I recommended or anything like that. If you want, you click one button. And in fact, what we're planning to provide in the subscription service, if you really want, you can just have us automatically. We do some ongoing testing, and whenever we figure out which image is best, we can just do it totally automatically. But if you want, you can opt to review it. We won't switch anything without getting your permission first.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So is it a team member doing it, or is it just automated?
It's automated. So this is what our developers have been working hard on for the past year. It's basically building this so that you just you make your choices about what you want to implement, and then we implement it for you, because what we're trying to do with Whatify is to make it so this technology is as easy as possible. So it's not just saying, oh, if you lack the analytical skill, maybe you can use this. But even if you had the analytical skill, you don't have the time. We don't want it to be oh, you have to spend hours and hours to do this experiment. So the idea is the whole process should just take a couple of minutes.
Okay, amazing. I love that.
All right, excellent.
Yeah. So I would love you created something a little bit special for our audience. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, first of all, if you're interested in trying Whatify, so the website is, we keep saying Whatify, it's what if, and then the letter Y. So www.whatify.com.
And we'll have a link in the show notes so that you guys can go there real easily.
Okay, excellent. And then we also are creating a coupon code for all of your listeners, which I think we decided it would be Flourish and Thrive is the coupon code.
Okay, awesome.
So the way that Whatify works currently, actually, as I mentioned earlier, you don't need a credit card. It's free to try for a month. And so after that month, if you then want to subscribe to Whatify, you enter your credit card information. And at that point, we'll also have a place where you can enter your coupon code. And if you enter that coupon code, then we'll give you 20% off.
Amazing. And is that is that just for the first month or ongoing?
So that's going to be 20% off the subscription for the first 6 months of that subscription.
Okay, amazing. 20% off your subscription for 6 months. I love this. This is amazing. I am so excited for this episode to go live so that we can get some of our designers testing it. It's going to be so fun. I'm really excited to see the results. Yay.
Yeah, we are super excited too, because we feel like we have built this product that we think can help people a lot, and we really want people to try it. And I should also add that, of course, we are a startup. We're very early stage, so we think we feel like it's working pretty well right now. We've been testing it for months and months, but we always welcome feedback. So if you do something and even if it seems to be working well, but there's something you're not satisfied with, please, you can send me an email. If you on the Whatify website, we have contact information for all of us. So send us an email. Let us know if there's something we can improve, or especially if something goes wrong. If there's anything that happens like that, please let us know right away, and we'll try to fix it as soon as we can.
Okay, amazing. So we'll have all these links on the show notes. We're going to have the offer also listed out there so that you can use the discount code Flourish and Thrive. And I have to ask one final question, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know that you're just launching this with Etsy, but when's this going to be available for other platforms like Shopify?
Yeah, so we're certainly planning to do that. I mean, as I said, right now we're 100% focused on Etsy, but hopefully if everything goes well with Etsy, then in the next couple of months, we'll be able to raise more money from investors, hire more developers who can then help us make this available for other platforms. And Shopify is actually the next major one that we're looking at. So ideally, that would be...
I'm excited for all of it. Yay.
Yeah, inside of a couple of months. But of course, the future is uncertain, so who knows what it will bring.
Yes, which is exciting. The future is uncertain, it's going to be amazing, amazing things.
Unless you A/B test, then you know for sure.
Yes, and when you A/B test, you know for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today, Jason. This has been awesome, and I'm just so fascinated by all of this. So I'm excited to share it with the Thrive by Design community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for listening to the show today. I totally geeked out on this episode today when we were doing the pre-show stuff and the post-show stuff and having these conversations. Like, I love talking about how split testing can really improve your marketing, how it can improve your sales. And Whatify is a really amazing solution for you to not only increase traffic, but eventually sales and conversions on your Etsy and on your Etsy shop, right? So to check out that very special offer that Jason spoke about, here's the deal. So we're just going to send you straight to the Whatify website. You're going to go to whatify.com. That's Watify.com. And then you're going to sign up for a free trial. You don't have to give them a credit card or anything to test this out. What they're going to do is give you some random sampling of images that you have, give you results on what's working better. They want you to test it. They're going to give you some data behind that. And then if you decide to move on with the subscription, enter the code Flourish and Thrive, all lowercase, in the coupon code, and you'll get 20% off of their subscription for 6 months. So you can start seeing measured growth over a long period of time. Because as you've heard us say, success is not an overnight thing. It takes testing, it takes time, it takes trying out different things to increase your sales and continue to grow and then expand on what's working. And I just love what Whatify is doing. All right, make sure you check it out, especially if you have an Etsy shop, obviously. And thanks so much for listening to the show today. Until next time, this is Tracy Matthews signing off.